Hello and welcome to ETBFSI.com. My name is Amol Dethe. On the show today, my guest is a veteran banker who's leading UK's most important bank. This is a challenger bank. And it's my pleasure to have Mr. T.S. Anil, the global CEO of Monzo, which is a top challenger bank. T.S., glad to have you.
Great to be here, Amol. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, T.S. So my first question is very basic and let the Indian audience understand what Challenger Bank and what Monzo is because Monzo is everywhere in the headlines, when we speak about the Challenger Bank. So give us some, anecdotes or some explanation about what is Monzo. And also your tagline is creating an alternative to the banking of past. So how are you doing it? How are you actually building a different or the best bank in the world at TS?
Thanks for that question, Amol. So if I get to the heart of what Monzo is, we're a mission-oriented tech company that is seeking to transform the world of finance and banking for customers around the world. So what does that mean? Our mission is making money work for everyone. And it's important to understand that mission because that really is what Monzo is about, which means giving customers the ability to manage their money better, demystify what it means to manage money effectively, give you the tools to make good decisions, and serve all of your different financial services needs, from being able to transact and pay effectively, to being able to borrow effectively, invest, save, insure, etc. So meet all of your needs. And the way we do this, right, which is the heart of what it means to be a challenger bank or neobank or whatever words people throw at the industry, the heart of it is to bring the best of technology, which means product, engineering, design, data, bring the best of technology and pair that with the best of banking and bring that offering in the hands of our customers. Now, we're an entirely digital bank, app only, as they say. And we're doing this at scale in the UK, which is one of the largest banking markets in the world, as you know. We have over 5.5 million customers now, and they're individual customers as well as small businesses. And we continue to grow incredibly fast. We're adding, over 100,000 new users every single month without paid marketing. So our product has historically sold itself when, customers experience it for the first time, use the tools in the app, love the product enough that they talk to their friends and their families about it. And our business has grown largely through referrals and customers promoting us. And the reason they do that is because the product speaks to them. It helps them manage their money better. It demystifies it. It puts in their hands something that is, does all of those things and also delights them with the quality of its design. We're in the UK right now. We have program running in the US as well. And everything that we have has been built on a home-built stack. So it's our own technology stack that's been built. And it's an incredible stack that allows us to continue to expand, add new products to it, and continue to scale effectively as well.
Okay. Noted your points, T.S. And I think you started in 2015-16, right? So if I look at the view of maybe 5 to 7 years since we started, 5 million customers and adding 100,000 every month is not a small numbers considering the Euro region. I mean, India is a completely different market if we speak about it. But I think 100,000 is a very interesting number. What is it that the customers are looking for, or why are they coming to Monzo? What is the major difference that you are adding to them apart from the app, which is actually trending in the world today?
Yes, look, as I said, the mission is to make their money work for them. And so understanding the customer's needs about in what ways is managing their money difficult for them? How do we give them transparency and visibility and control over their money? And do it in a way that actually is easy to understand and, as I said, delights through the quality of the design itself, the quality of the experience itself. So that's the heart of it, Amol. It's not a lot more complicated than that. And it really is about caring about the customer and the entire journey that the customer has with us. So it starts with making sure that their experience when they first sign up is amazing, but then at every touch point after that as well. So the idea is, we should explain things to them in words that they understand. So we don't think about it as, what do we need to disclose to the customer, or what are mandatory requirements of disclosure and things like that. We think about it as what does the customer need to know, and how do we communicate it to them in a way that they understand it and helps them make good decisions.
Right.
So that's who we are across all of the different touch points.
Okay. Sure. So obviously, I will get into some specific questions about the operations and how the Monzo is actually working. But before that, yes, you come from a different background. Obviously, it's all is in the financial services industry as well, only. But tell me, what actually made you, get into this? What made you actually challenge the whole traditional banks and come with challenger bank?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a broader sort of personal journey story separately, but really, in this context, the heart of it was that I had worked at incumbent banks, and incredibly well regarded, well respected, really good companies. But it was clear to me that the reinvention of the industry would not happen by the incumbents easily, right? And some might make it, and so on. I don't doubt that for a minute. But fundamentally, the industry was going to be reinvented by someone starting with a clean slate and having a big ambition and a big sense of mission about it. And not for want of trying, do incumbents not succeed, right? Legacy technology, legacy talent, legacy mindset, legacy business models, all of these things are protected species, and becomes very, very hard to actually really break out from a clean slate perspective, which is, I think, what companies like Monzo have, which is a clean slate, no legacy, and the ability to sort of build from scratch. When I first encountered Monzo, the reason it appealed for me and it felt like the one was because all of those things about challengers and new players was true, right? The really smart technology minds, really smart, clean slate way of thinking about the business. But it was paired with this sense of mission that I talked about. It was paired with a company where deep in the company, that everyone you talk to at Monzo has that same sense of what they're trying to do and why Monzo exists. And that combination was incredibly appealing, right? The ability to work with someone that really had the technology smarts to challenge the incumbent system, but also had the sense of heart about why they were doing it. That was an incredible combination, and I felt like this was the one that was best positioned to succeed.
Okay, very well said, TS. But tell me something about the operations. When you started this company, how long did it take, you to build the app, build your UI and UX, and shift from beta version to actual version where you could ask people to download the app? And how long did it take for you? How much money did you invest into it? How was the response from the investors to it?
Sure. So just to clarify one piece of it, so I took over from the founder 2 years ago, right? But I'll give you the founding journey as well. We began as a prepaid card while we were applying for permissions and regulatory licenses and so on. And you know, the initial interest from investors was very strong because I think everybody had a hypothesis that this space is ripe for disruption. Uh, but the challenge was going to be about who could actually get it done. So as the initial product was built, the prepaid uh, product was built, and that started scaling very quickly. And it seemed like there was something happening over here where a community was coming together, and we were partnering with our customers to co-create as well. Right? We would talk about our product roadmaps publicly. The community engaged with us in terms of what features they were liking or not liking. Um, and our customers were a core part of that journey. We even did a crowdsourcing funding round, right, which was a record capital raise. So we really involved the community. And once that sense that this was actually catching fire in an exciting way started to come in, right, the growth from that point was really rapid because the timing was good. The UK government, the UK regulators were ready to provide full-on licenses to digital banks. The customer need was very, very strong. And Monzo was a team of incredibly smart people that were committed in the ways that I described. So that combination came together really well. And of course, as growth started happening very rapidly, investor interest was very, very strong as well. So it's not an overnight journey. We said this in a different context a week ago, that building a bank is not a sprint but a marathon.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot you have to do to earn the trust and earn the credit to have the responsibility to bank people's life savings. So we were building regulatory muscles, control muscles to operate this at scale while we were building the technology and the product as well.
Sure. So let me hear it from you once again. It's an absolutely digital bank, right? Because when we come to a bank, what we remember is, 10, 15 people working there, long crowds, long queues, right? So it's hard to believe the bank is, it's an app-based bank. It's a digital only bank. So let me hear it from you.
So I will say it in the terms that will make the most sense. We're a full-on legitimate licensed bank, just like any other big bank you can think of. We're a fully licensed bank, fully regulated bank, and we're entirely digital. There isn't a Monzo branch that you could walk into. As much as I would like to see you in person at any point in time, there is not a Monzo branch that you can walk into. Right? It entirely, the bank lives on your phone.
Absolutely. Thanks for again clarifying that, TS. So let me come into a bit operations part, TS. Are you also trying to innovate the typical banking products which they offer in a typical traditional banks? Because considering the generation which is there on the app, people are believing in the UI and UX. They will judge the bank basis on the UI and UX, right? So are you also offering different products? If yes, what kind of response are you getting? What kind of products are you offering to this generation?
Sure. I mean, the way to think about it is this, right? If you think about a customer's financial needs, those needs have been around for, since the beginning of mankind, right? The customers need to be able to pay effectively and transact. Customers need to be able to borrow effectively, save, invest. All of those needs have been around for a long, long time and have been met in different ways over the centuries. So the needs are not new, right? The question is, how do you serve that need, leveraging the best of the technology that is available today, and give the customer a way of managing their money using that. So are we reinventing the products? So customers want to borrow money. We're not reinventing the idea of a product that meets that need. But the way we're executing against it, the way we're delivering against it, is soup to nuts reinvent that process, right? Make it incredibly easy for the customer to give you information and go through an application process. Underwrite that using a ton of data in really, really effective ways, using obviously all of the new age data technologies around machine learning and everything else, but also the data that we have as that customers provide us in the ways they use their product as well. So underwrite really effectively. Give the customer the tools to actually borrow what feels right for them, right? Not go and saying, how do I get this customer to borrow the maximum amount possibly, whether or not it's a good idea for them, right? Help them make good choices about that. So our customers get to choose their overdraft limit, right? As a simple example. So across this whole value chain, across this whole experience that the customer has end to end with borrowing, at each stage, we've made it easier and given them tools to make good decisions, and done it in a way, to your UI UX point, done it in a way that the design delights the customer. Right? They get what's happening, it meets their needs, and it has an element of joy in it.
Okay, valid point. Design delights the customer. What is that most interesting thing that you are doing compared to traditional banks? Because now even traditional banks are also offering digital apps. They're also getting into the digital far more aggressive, and every bank has an app. So how will you continue to make a difference in your app compared to the other banks?
Yeah, so I think, look, lots of respect for the existing banks, and as I said, many of them, will do it right and find a way to continue to reinvent themselves as well. But that said, it's like when you think about the world of retailing, let's use that as an example for now. Retailers have existed since the beginning of time, but when we compare retailers today and you compare a retailer that has a website where you can also buy their products online, and you compare them with purely digital retailers, you start to understand how everybody can have a website, but it's not the same as being a digital retailer, because a digital retailer solves the problem soup to nuts, right? It's not about putting a digital storefront in front of an analog business. A digitally native business model starts, everything is built around the idea that, look, this is the way we're going to deliver it to to a customer. And ultimately, the proof point over here is the net promoter score. Right? That's a good metric to understand how much customers like your product versus not. In an industry where the incumbent players have net promoter scores, if they're positive, they're in the early teens at best. Our net promoter score is 70, right?
Okay.
And that, so the proof point of all of the different things that I'm describing, right, come together in terms of how customers actually feel about us. And a net
Mm-hmm.
promoter score of 70 tells you that, all of the different touch points that I can describe at length add up to an experience, a comprehensive experience, which blows it out of the water.
Valid points, TS. But my always question, to all the innovators, the bankers specifically, is this that I mean, we are living in a VUCA world, right? Everything is changing so rapidly. I mean, you adopt one technology today, and suddenly, by the time it starts integrating in your system, the another technology is coming or the another version is coming. So, how are you going to actually? How not only just you? I mean, obviously, I want your perspective here. How bankers should actually stay updated and upgraded all the time because things are changing so rapidly in the BFSI space.
Yeah, I'll I'll answer that with one of my favorite lines, right? Which is, in times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped for a world that doesn't exist. So the important thing over here is to be a learning company, a learning organization where you can constantly keep reinventing yourself and you're not getting attached to the way things have been done. And so, and that pace of change point is spot on. And that's what we challenge ourselves on every single day, right? How do we actually ship faster? How do we iterate faster? Right? How do we launch the first version of the product, learn quickly about how customers are using it, and you know evolve the product, right? And that ability to iterate very quickly at pace, that agility to do it on an ongoing basis, speaks to everything, right? It speaks to the mindset of the company, the teams that are working on it, their hunger to learn about how things can get better, and willingness to listen to customers and see how customers actually use the product. It speaks to the technology that allows you to iterate. And all of that needs to come together, because it's one thing to say, look, we want to learn, but if you don't have the technology that allows you to incorporate that learning quickly into the next version of the product and the next version, it doesn't mean anything. That equally, if you have the technology, but the organization is sort of anchored to doing things in a particular way and can't adapt, that's not enough either.
Hmm. Okay. Uh, on the differentiation part, yes, let me take your one. If it would be really great if you could share one more personal experience since you came from a, you work with the different finance companies. Even in, for example, I'll give you an example of India. If any bank even wants to open a branch, they have to go for a regulatory approval. Then it's the whole process, right? Even opening a branch here, you don't have to open a branch. You don't have and don't have to take so many approvals to launch a product which you must have done earlier with in your earlier avatar. So what is that major difference that you find in terms of operations? Because there are not so many hurdles. You do not need to take approvals from so many people, which you perhaps you would have taken when you were working in a previous companies, and now you're working with a Monzo. So how's that difference that you would like to share?
Sure. So look, let me just begin by reminding you, right? So we are a fully regulated bank. So we absolutely work with our regulators, and and we believe that actually it's a good thing. We welcome the regulation because it actually helps us be held to high standards in ways that you need to be when you're sort of banking people's life savings and banking people's money, right? So that's a good thing. But you're right that because we're not an old world bank, there's many decisions that I don't have to make. Right? I don't have to decide where to open the next branch, and I don't have to figure out what the approval process for that branch would be, and does it meet like a ton of more regulations that have been put against that industry. So it makes a lot of things easier, right? So there's a lot of things that don't need approvals for, right? But we want to build products that are responsible and that actually are going to where we think the right answer should be for the market. Right. So when you look at, for instance, we launched our buy now, pay later style product last summer called Monzo Flex. We built that with a view of where the industry should go. Right. We said, let's learn the best from the world of credit cards and BNPL and debit cards and loans and everything, deconstruct that for it to be the best product, you know, mindful of where the regulatory landscape could go, and so on. So we actually built it for the, you know, future-proofed it in that sense, and that's our approach. So it's a lot easier than a traditional bank because there's fewer decisions that need that you know, need all of those approvals in whatever sense. But equally, we hold ourselves to very high standards.
Absolutely, and you have to continue to do that,
For sure.
obviously. So one or two very important question, TS, on the fintech side now, on the industry side. All the countries are seeing a great rise in the fintech space right now. How do you think? What do you think? Where this rise will go? What will happen to the fintechs going ahead? Because they are also offering greater innovation. Most of the traditional banks are partnering with them. Where do you think this collaboration will go?
It's a great question, Amol, because the different countries around the world, you can see the emergence of different kinds of business models, right? In the UK and in lots of parts of Europe, you see that players like us have chosen, have chosen to just become licensed players. Like just like any other big bank is licensed, we are licensed, fully licensed as well, right? Elsewhere, you see the model where people are partnering with the banks.
Hmm.
Um, where do I think it will go? I think eventually it really comes down to what is the customer valuing, right? And ultimately that will determine where the future of these partnerships and everything else. Because if the customer is placing a value on the quality of an experience or a product that they're getting from the fintech world, then the value will be kept, disproportionately by the fintech player, right? So
Hmm.
that's the heart of it. Wherever I think content will be king, right? Where the piece of the value chain where the most value is being added to the customer's life
Hmm.
is where the premiums will be.
Hmm.
So what
Okay.
that means from a timing perspective, what that means from a, who wins, who loses perspective, I think, time will tell. But I think that's what will drive it eventually.
Okay. So considering the remarkable collaborations and integrations happening with each other, the banks, fintechs, insure companies, insure techs, what do you think will be the major change, or how do you see the whole banking maybe in next 20 next 5 to 10 years? Because the kind of revolution that we are witnessing now, which is unbelievable. What I saw 5 years back in the banking is absolutely different from today. Like in India, we everybody's using QR scan code payment today. UPI is kind of a bible today, right? So what do you think will be the next big change in the banking in next 4 to 5 years?
Look, I think payment still has a ways to go to becoming, easier and friction free for customers. So that will continue to be a trend, I think, and especially as countries like India digitize more and more. I mean, it's grown rapidly in the last few years, as you pointed out, with QR and UPI based payments. So I think that growth will continue,
Hmm.
um, and it's a crucial part of it. I
Hmm.
think the piece that is underrepresented is the piece around customers being able to manage their money well, and I think that's an underserved need. So while you can might make a payment instantly, just thinking about money, visualizing money, managing it effectively, I think will remain a big gap, and which is what we seek to fill in the markets that we operate in, right? Where we want to give customers the ability to actually think about their entire financial life effectively. So I think that will remain a gap in many markets. Um, Lending or borrowing has been a big thing for a long, long time, and I suspect that will remain. The key will be how responsibly people can lend, because you see these boom and bust cycles in lending where people get gung ho, over leverage customers. It results in a credit crisis and a shakeout of players and so on. So I think that and in any boom cycle you see evidence of people becoming irresponsible or sloppy from that perspective. So it will remain a big need, but I think the bar of what looks like a successful player will change, and the premium will be on people that can actually manage, you know, um, you know, le- lending in an effective way as well.
Hmm.
Um, and I think what will continue to evolve in this is that customers' expectations are continuing to rise,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they're not just rising because of what's available to them in the world of fintech or banking. It's rising because their lives are changing,
Correct.
right? When I can order food and have it delivered in 20 minutes, or when I can book travel so easily, when I can do so many other things of my life so incredibly easily,
Yes.
the expectation is that I should be able to manage my money effectively as well, that my banking should be easy as well. So customer expectations are rising because everything in their lives is being transformed by technology.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, the bar of what it means to deliver good service to customers, put an amazing experience in the palm of their hands, will keep rising.
No, true, true. This is really interesting, and allow me to get some more from you. Please pick up more on this successful model, because what you said is the boom and bust. That cycle. That's actually kind of a dangerous thing. And I remember a great example. I met the founder of Shinja at Singapore Fintech Festival, the Shinja, that neobank from Australia. And we were all impressed by the presentation he gave there, and people wanted to meet him. And like a year back down the line, we see that Shinja is closing down its shops, and that was in fact started as the most successful neobank. And there are so many neobanks emerging in Asia now. There are so many fintechs are becoming unicorns and getting listed. So if you could add on what you said on the successful model, what will I mean, how should they protect themselves so that they will not they will not fail miserably and become successful? Any more points you want to add?
Yeah, look, there's a reason this space has not been disrupted as yet, because it's difficult, right? This is not the same as solving for, something that is solved only with, technology. You have to bring a bunch of different things together to make this work effectively and scale this business effectively. So, and in the context of the examples you're giving, look, and lending is a great example of where, irresponsibility comes into the industry from time to time and produces bad outcomes for customers. And, so the survivors over here, the people that actually succeed at scale, will be those that can actually straddle this effectively, use technology, product engineering, data design, and so on, really effectively, while also pairing it with what it means to operate at scale, what it means to be a bank, and succeed at both those things. Because, and by the way, it's the examples of people that tried and failed exist across both ends of that spectrum. Tech companies or startups that tried, and I don't know the specific example that you were giving, but clearly they didn't make it. But there are also examples of banks that got banking really well but didn't make it on the other side. So bringing those two together is the heart of the challenge. And I think it's a fun challenge to solve, because there's very few things that one can take on that have like massive and generational impact on customers' lives, and money is one of them.
Right, right. Very informative. Yes, let me take last two questions with you. You must be observing the Indian fintech market, right? Because they have been actually disrupting a lot, trying to gain a big name in the Asia. Recently, two, three fintechs got listed also. How do you read it? How do you observe the Indian fintech space right now? What is your view on it?
So I'm really excited about it. Is the short answer. I'm excited about the fact that there's a very, very large and growing tech scene in India. Lots of entrepreneurs are starting companies to solve big needs in a country like India, and that is very exciting to me as as someone who grew up and thinks of India still as home. It means a lot to see that transformation. So I'm very, very excited at a personal level as well. I think what's exciting to me is that in India, the opportunity of scale is a very real one. And it's because you can the market is large and digital adoption is large, and the digital infrastructure is growing leaps and bounds, right? With connectivity and smartphones in most people's hands, with underlying infrastructure like UPI that enables a bunch of innovation. So I think those ingredients are all right, and that's really exciting. The question in my mind, as the next few years play themselves out, is how do you pair customer growth with sustainable business models and revenues, because that will be the reckoning at some point, and the players that make it through on the other side will be ones that can actually straddle both of those things.
Okay. Notable. Yes. And one more question on specifically Monzo. What next for Monzo now?
So our ambition is to be a global company, and we're the leader in the UK. We're investing heavily in the US, and over time we believe that every part of the world needs Monzo, right? Customers around the world need the product that Monzo is, and in their lives to help them manage their money. And my hope is that we continue to expand in the coming years.
Hmm. Okay, valid points. I think whole world is talking about hyper-connected world, thriving in a hyper-connected world and building, only app-based banking. So do you also believe now going ahead, maybe app-based banking or branch-based banking will be the way? Because I was reading through few reports and even American banks have started closing down its branches, quick time. Indian banks, even PSU banks in India have started doing that. So do you think the branchless banking is on its way to apocalypse maybe?
Look, I mean, there's two questions to ask to figure out where this will go. The first is, when was the last time someone walked into a branch and came out saying, "Oh, that was an amazing experience," right? And then the second question is, when was the last time someone walked into a branch at all, right? And I can answer both of those questions from my perspective. I don't know when the last time I walked into a branch was. It was a long, long time ago, and I don't think I've ever had a great experience in a branch. I've got my need met, right? But it's not the same thing as coming out feeling delighted. So, those two lenses inform it for me, and I think this should inform it for anyone thinking about it and trying to figure out where this goes.
So let me shoot one or two more questions. So considering, the Indian fintechs are rising, how do you see this market in terms of the opportunities? I also see few of the fintechs and the companies like Revolt are trying to get into the India. Do you, I mean, are you interested in such opportunities?
But specifically, are we interested in opportunities in India?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, sure. So there are no immediate plans, but as I said, we will be a global company, and of course, it will remain of interest to us.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. But otherwise, how do you see the whole Indian market is growing? Because considering the innovation that the fintechs are offering, looks like even the NPCI is also trying to export the UPI innovation to different countries. You being an Indian, how do you see this? And whether by any chance you will see, sometime that India will be on a global map when it comes to the absolute banking innovation or something like
I mean, I see no reason for it not to be, right? Because there's the conditions in India that I mentioned that make it ripe for innovation are, there's a huge market, there are needs that are not being met, and there is technology and connectivity that's already, those rails have been laid. So it creates the context for a huge amount of innovation coming out of India. The question is, what scales outside of India that was born in India, and I'm certain we'll see those models emerge in the coming years, because India, the conditions in India are true for many countries around the world. And once you've operated at the scale of India, it's easy to think about entering newer markets and stuff on the back of that. So it'll be exciting to watch. I'm sure there will be some players that will become global, that are born in India.
So TS, there is one challenge which I'm trying to understand in India is most of the fintech started their journey with the wallets, then they got into the fintech, they got into the payments, and now everybody is heading towards the lending because that's where they felt that they can make money. So it's kind of a follower structure. One will become successful and everybody will follow them. So what is your maybe learnings or what is your advice to this fintech? Because one, everybody is getting into the fundraising plans and they want to be unicorns, but on the other side you know, do not know whether their model is sustainable or the business value which they are creating is going to be sustainable. So, what is your advice to these fintechs in India?
I mean, I wish, like I said, I have lots of respect for many of the players there, who I get to interact with and meet as well. So, I'm not sure this is really advice that I'd give them, but really for anybody in this space, I think it's important to understand what you're building towards, and there's lots of entry points into that. Right? You can find different entry points. In the example you gave, people entered with wallets into a broader banking play and so on. I think that's fine. There's different entry points, but having a long view about what you're really building and how that becomes sustainable because it actually solves real needs that customers have, and there's a responsible way to monetize that, I think will determine people who succeed and then those that don't. There's a lot of investor money, chasing big ideas, like you would expect in the world of venture capital, right? I mean, you saw that revolution a few years ago in the West, where VC dollars were chasing, all sorts of ideas. And of course, there's a small percentage of those become successful, and an even smaller percentage becomes successful at scale. And you'll see much of that same dynamic in India. There's a lot of investment money, clearly, and people are betting on a lot of different horses. Eventually, success will be driven by those that actually find a sustainable, scalable business model and ways to make that work well.
So, TS, I would like you to tell us something about yourself. In terms of how you how was your India journey? How you shifted to London? How you got into the whole banking, the innovation space? What are your observations in terms of overall the life and the difference that you have seen in various countries and where you worked? If you could tell us about yourself, it would be very encouraging for us to understand.
Sure. So, I grew up with what I think of as a really idyllic sort of upbringing. My dad was in the army, and my mom was a social worker. So I grew up in, army cantonments, and a, very sort of idyllic life. And my parents, like, for so many of us, are huge influences on me. My dad was obviously the army colonel, but it was also, instilled in me a sense of intellectual curiosity. And his curiosity spanned everything from the world of science and technology to Urdu ghazals and reading and everything in between, right? So I got that. My dad sort of gave that to me, and my mom was a social worker, and a social worker who ran orphanages, who did women's welfare, worked in the slums, in different parts of India. And I got something very different from her, which was a sense of connecting with the communities in which you live, connecting with the people that that are around you. And that combination of influences has been aspirational for me all along. So I grew up like that. I grew up in different parts of India, in Pune, in Delhi for as large chunks of time, but lots of small army cantonments are, outside of that. And because of growing up like that, I also have some version of a pan-Indian identity. So, when people ask me where am I from in India, I always have to sort of ask a follow-on question before I answer it. So, I'm originally from Andhra. Both my parents are from Andhra. They were both brought up outside of Andhra. Mom in Lucknow, dad in Pune. I was brought up
Right.
all over India. I have, I speak multiple Indian languages. So I have some weird pan-Indian sort of sense of identity as well.
Okay. No, that's quite interesting. But how do you look at the whole talent space? Because somehow the world has recognized the Indian talent, and you must have heard this, and obviously you are also part of that whole gang of the leading companies are led by the Indians, right? How do you react to it? How do you react to the whole Indian talent pool?
Look, it's exciting for me. And I know that we came out of a system which, taught you a lot, not just in the classroom, but even outside of it. And, for me, so, went straight from school to undergrad to an MBA and started working when I was 21. And I was lucky that was a time when India was globalizing. So I was lucky that I was part of a generation of people that got opportunities to move overseas early on, right? And so I moved first to the US, then Singapore and Tokyo, and then Singapore again, and then California, and then now London. So I was lucky that I got to be, got that sense of opportunity. It clearly comes from, you know, being able to grow up in the thriving chaos of India and learn new things, adapt quickly, and all of that I think makes us able to cope in very different kinds of situations. And so that's definitely a part of what's come to me through heritage and being, growing up in the ways that I did. Clearly, there's enough of us around the world that are, and you're seeing people get bigger opportunities and so on. So that's, it's lucky to be a part of all of that.
Quite interesting. In fact, this is quite interesting. And allow me to ask you one more question here. And now, when you shifted, to foreign land, that was a different era altogether. And now we are a different country. We are talking about digital. We are talking about strengthening the ecosystem with technology. And we also became, and India also become a sixth largest economy in the world. And now we are becoming, and we are dreaming of $5 trillion economy, by 2024, which will be extended because of COVID. So how do you see now India, in terms of the other countries? Because you're operating in Europe, and now European investors and Europe is betting heavily on India. So how do you see now? I mean, how do you does that make you smile?
I mean, it makes me proud for the roots from where I came and the fact that, that all of this is happening. And I feel happiest about the fact that it means that the Indian consumer is going to get smarter, better options, right? I grew up in a world where, we were all happy, but there were very few options for anything, right? And now customers have more options, better quality, global standards, which is fantastic. And and we just talked about this, right? We're going not from global standards being set for India, but hopefully India actually aspiring to and setting standards for itself that surpass anybody else's expectations. And yeah, it's really exciting to see and be a part of.
Oh, then don't you think you should bring Monzo quickly here?
As I told you, I mean, so no immediate plans, but clearly, our ambition is global, and
Right.
it'll happen at the right time.
Oh, sure, sure. Noted your points, TS. I think a meaningful information. Thank you so much for your time.